thought about just how powerful stories are?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like,
From ancient myths to, those bedtime stories that many of us grew up with.
oh, absolutely.
There's just something captivating about a good narrative, right?
Yeah, it's like they really draw you in.
It's almost like our brains are just hardwired for stories more than they are for straight up facts.
I think that's true.
Like you're way more likely to actually remember something and really grasp it when it's woven into a good story,
yeah. You're right, because it helps you make sense of things.
Yeah, you can see the bigger picture. It's not just isolated pieces of information.
That's a really good point. And what's really interesting is that this tendency to use stories, it's not just some random thing. It's actually deeply ingrained in us as humans.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you see this across cultures throughout history.
Right.
We use stories to pass down knowledge from one generation to the next,
Yeah.
To share our values or beliefs, even to warn each other about potential dangers.
It's like a universal language in a way.
I think it is.
And that brings us to today's deep dive.
Okay.
Something that you might not immediately think of as being super important for learning and development. Children's stories.
Ah.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a closer look at why these simple narratives are actually profoundly important,
I'm intrigued.
especially from the perspective of Shia Islamic teachings, and why educators really need to pay attention to this.
Oh, that's fascinating.
But also, we want to consider what might happen when we overlook these meaningful stories.
So it's like a two-sided coin, right?
Right, the benefits and the potential downsides.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it raises some pretty big questions, doesn't it?
For sure.
Like, why are children's stories so significant? And what does that actually mean in practical terms for how kids learn and grow?
Yeah, you're right.
It might seem like a simple topic on the surface, but there's actually a lot more to it than you might think.
Oh, there definitely is. And that's why this deep dive is so important.
Right.
And for this one, you brought in some really fascinating material.
Well, I try to.
Yeah, we've got insights from some really key Shia Islamic texts
Yeah, those are foundational.
that really emphasize the power of storytelling. And then we're also going to look at a more contemporary issue,
Okay.
the potential dangers of unchecked online influences on kids.
Right. That's a huge topic these days.
It really is. And if we kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture,
Okay.
our mission today is to understand this multifaceted role that stories play in a child's life.
I like that.
How do stories help them develop? How do they impact their learning?
Yeah.
And even how do they shape a child's identity?
Yeah. And ultimately, it's about raising awareness,
Exactly.
especially among educators, about why this is something that deserves their attention.
100%. And I think one of the first things that really jumped out at me from the material
Okay.
is how these Shia stories that we're focusing on really provide kids with this amazing foundation for their sense of self.
Yeah, their identity, you know.
Their religious and cultural identity, it's all right there.
And what's really interesting here is how these stories actually offer kids a very real and tangible connection to their heritage.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, sometimes abstract religious concepts can be hard for young minds to fully grasp.
Totally, they need something concrete.
Right. But when you present those same ideas through stories,
Yeah.
especially stories featuring figures like Imam Hussein and the Bait, who are central figures in Shia Islam.
Right, the Prophet's family.
Exactly. It makes it much more relatable, you know?
Yeah, it makes it human.
Right. It's like putting a face to these core principles and then weaving a captivating narrative around them.
It's like turning something abstract into something they can really understand.
Exactly. And you know, you pointed out something really important, which is how this approach helps foster a sense of belonging and pride,
Yeah, that was huge for me.
especially for children growing up in diverse environments where they might feel different.
Right.
It's so important for them to have that strong internal compass rooted in their faith and values.
To feel confident in who they are.
Absolutely. And this ties in beautifully with the Islamic principle. It's not just about religious instruction. It's about the holistic nurturing of a child. You know,
Nice.
we're talking about their spiritual development, their moral growth, and their intellectual growth.
So it's like this really well-rounded approach.
Exactly. And even the Quran itself emphasizes this.
Oh, wow. How so?
Well, there's this verse that refers to the best of stories.
Interesting.
It's in Surah Yusuf, verse 3. And it really highlights the importance of narrative in guiding us, you know?
Yeah, like it's almost a divine endorsement of storytelling.
I think it is. And then you look back at the teachings of Imam Ali, and he had this amazing advice.
What was it?
He said, speak to people according to their level of understanding.
Wow, that's so insightful.
It really is, and it shows how much emphasis the Beit placed on effective communication.
Right.
Especially when it comes to nurturing young minds,
It's about meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, and using these stories as a bridge to help them understand deeper concepts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, another key area that you highlighted was the role of stories in developing language and literacy.
Right.
It seems like they're not just about the content they convey, but also about how children learn to communicate.
You hit the nail on the head. It's like these stories are fundamental tools for acquiring language and developing literacy skills.
That's amazing. I never thought of it like that.
And if you think about it, the Quran itself uses parables extensively.
Right.
Which are essentially stories with a deeper meaning.
Yeah, designed to convey those big truths in a way that's accessible and memorable.
Exactly. So when children engage with these stories, whether it's from the Quran or from the lives of the prophets and the Beit, they're essentially absorbing vocabulary, learning language patterns, and really internalizing how communication works.
It's like a natural and engaging way to learn.
Absolutely. It's not forced, it's organic, and the Quran actually addresses this directly.
Oh, wow. So
there's a verse that says, "Indeed, in their stories, there is a lesson for those of understanding."
Oh, that's interesting.
It's from Surah Yusuf, verse 111, and it highlights how these stories are packed with meaning for those who are ready to receive it.
So it's not just entertainment, it's a source of wisdom.
Exactly. And regular exposure to this kind of Islamic storytelling, especially the rich language of the Quran and the vibrant oral traditions within Shia Islam, really helps enhance a child's speaking and listening skills.
That makes sense.
And they start to learn the specific moral vocabulary words like sabr, which means patience, shukr, meaning gratitude, and adol, which means justice.
Yeah, those are powerful concepts.
And these words become part of their everyday language and their ethical framework.
It's like weaving morality into the very fabric of their language.
I like that analogy. And what's really encouraging is that it's not just anecdotal evidence.
Oh, really?
There's actual research in developmental psychology that backs this up.
That's amazing.
Studies have shown a clear link between children engaging in storytelling and developing higher language skills.
So it's scientifically proven.
Yeah, there's real data to support this. And, when you think about figures like Lady Fatima, known for her wisdom and her narratives, or Imam al-Sajjad with his incredibly eloquent supplications like Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, these serve as powerful models of both language and moral instruction.
Right.
Children absorb so much just through these stories. It's almost like osmosis.
It's like soaking it all up naturally.
Exactly. And there's this beautiful saying from Imam Ali that really captures this.
What is it?
He said, "The heart of a child is like a fertile land. Whatever you plant in it, it will grow."
Wow, that's so true.
It emphasizes the importance of nurturing young minds with language and moral guidance through stories.
It's like planting seeds of wisdom.
I love that. And, we've been talking about identity language development.
Right.
But what about cognitive development and critical thinking?
Oh, yeah. How do those fit in?
Well, children's stories actually stimulate cognitive growth in so many ways.
Really?
Yeah, and this aligns really well with the Shia emphasis on equal or intellect as a divine gift.
Interesting.
Figures like Imam Jafar al-Sadiq were known for encouraging questioning and critical thinking.
Right.
And storytelling, in a way, mirrors this process.
How?
Because it challenges kids to analyze narratives, to extract those deeper moral lessons that are hidden within.
I see. So it's not just passively listening.
No, they're actively engaging with the story, trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
Right. Trying to understand why the characters make the choices they do.
Exactly. And there's this Quranic command that really comes to life through these stories.
Which one?
It's reflect on the signs of Allah.
Okay.
It's from Surah Al-Imran, verse 191, and it encourages us to think deeply about the world around us.
I see.
And stories provide that perfect opportunity for reflection.
So, for example, if a child is listening to the story of Prophet Yunus,
yes,
they might wonder, is he going to be saved from the whale? Or if they're hearing about Prophet Musa and the people of Pharaoh, they might analyze why Pharaoh ultimately rejected Prophet Musa.
Right. It's all about cause and effect,
Yeah, they're starting to think critically about these events.
And these are fundamental skills in problem solving and developing those analytical abilities.
Yeah, and you also mentioned how some of the Islamic oral traditions, like memorizing the stories of Karbala or different supplications, can actually help boost memory development in children.
Absolutely. The repetition and engagement really help solidify those neural pathways.
Right. It's like exercise for the brain. So we've covered identity, language development, cognitive skills.
Yeah.
But what about the emotional side of things?
That's a crucial one.
Yeah. How did these stories help children develop emotional intelligence and empathy?
This is where the stories rooted in Shia Islam, particularly the tragedy of Karbala, really shine.
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
They offer profound lessons in emotional resilience.
How so?
They expose children to themes of immense courage in the face of adversity.
Right.
And they teach them about compassion even towards those who might be considered their enemies.
That's a tough lesson, but so important.
It is. And Karbala is a very emotionally intense story.
For sure.
But I can see how the narrative of sacrifice and standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you, would resonate deeply with children and teach them some valuable emotional lessons.
Yeah, it's about facing your fears and doing what's right.
Exactly. And then there's the example of Lady Zainab.
Yeah, what about her?
Her sermons after Karbala are just incredible.
I've heard that.
They demonstrate such incredible emotional intelligence and moral clarity as she processes her grief and advocates for the truth.
Yeah. She doesn't shy away from her emotions.
No, she confronts them head on, and she becomes a role model for navigating intense emotions with strength and conviction.
Wow, that's inspiring.
It is. And there's also a lot of children's literature within the Shia tradition that explores complex emotions through the experiences of figures like Imam Hassan and Imam al-Khatim, helping young readers understand and process these feelings through a spiritual and moral lens.
That's so valuable.
It is. And there's even a verse in the Quran that emphasizes this.
Really? Which one?
It advises, speak to him with gentle speech that perhaps he may remember or fear Allah.
Where is that from?
That's from Surah Taha, verse 44. And it underscores the power of empathetic communication, which is often modeled in these stories.
So it's not just about understanding your own emotions.
No, it's also about learning how to communicate them effectively and with sensitivity.
Yeah, and how to respond to others' emotions.
Exactly. And these stories provide a framework and guidance for all of that.
That's incredible. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about moral and spiritual development.
Okay.
How do these stories help instill core values in children?
Well, in Shia Islam, storytelling isn't seen as just entertainment. It really highlights how these early narratives can have a lasting impact on a child's moral compass.
It sets them up for a lifetime of ethical decision-making.
I think so. And ultimately, this aligns with the prophetic guidance to nurture your children upon three things: love for your prophet, love for his household, and recitation of the Quran.
Right.
Stories become a primary vehicle for cultivating this love and connection.
So it's not just about teaching them dry facts or rules.
No, it's about instilling a love for their faith and their heritage through these engaging narratives.
I love that approach. Now, we've talked a lot about the positive impact of these stories.
Yeah.
But you also raised a really crucial point about the potential risks of neglecting them.
Right, especially in today's world.
Yeah, the digital age has brought a whole new set of challenges.
It has, and while these positive identity-affirming stories are so vital, we also have to acknowledge the potential negative consequences of not emphasizing them enough.
Right, and the dangers of those unchecked online influences that we talked about earlier.
Remember that material about the danger of influencers?
Oh yeah, that was really eye-opening.
It really highlighted how the internet and social media can have a huge psychological influence on children.
Yeah, and it's not just kids from non-Muslim families.
Right. Even children in Muslim families can end up consuming a lot of content that's not in line with Islamic values.
That's concerning.
It is. And there's this real risk of kids losing touch with their Islamic roots.
Right.
And being swayed by online figures who might not have a deep understanding of Islamic knowledge.
Yeah, it's like they're getting a distorted view.
And the constant exposure to this audio and visual content can really shape their perceptions, you know?
It can be subtle but powerful.
Yeah, and it can potentially lead them to accept beliefs and practices that clash with Islamic teachings.
And the accessibility of mobile phones these days.
And that's a huge factor.
Yeah, it's like they have this portal to a world of information.
And not all of it is good.
And the article really emphasized the role of parents in all of this.
Yeah. Children often mimic their parents' habits when it comes to internet and social media.
Right, if parents aren't mindful of their own consumption.
It's hard to guide their kids effectively.
So it starts at home.
It does. And the source made this really strong point.
What was it?
That if we don't proactively teach our children about Islam, they will inevitably learn about other things.
And those things might not be beneficial.
Exactly. And they even gave some specific examples.
Oh yeah, like what?
like children learning inappropriate dances or feeling pressured to show off online for validation.
Right, it's like seeking approval from the wrong sources.
And it can even lead to them adopting practices that are actually prohibited in Islam.
Oh, wow, how so?
Like by following non-Muslim influencers, they might be exposed to things like alcohol or premarital relationships.
That's a slippery slope.
It is. And they can also internalize materialistic ideologies that clash with Islamic values.
Right. It's like they're being pulled in a different direction.
And there's this real risk of them changing their core identity.
Wow, that's a scary thought.
It is, especially if they lack that strong grounding in their own faith and traditions.
Yeah, they need that solid foundation to navigate all these influences.
They do. And the source also had a really important caution.
Oh, what was it?
We shouldn't assume that all Muslim influencers online are beneficial.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Sadly, there are some who might misrepresent Islam for their own gain.
That's dangerous.
It is, and it can be really harmful to young minds.
So it's not enough to just say, oh, they're following a Muslim influencer.
Right. We need to be discerning.
They need to make sure they're getting accurate information and guidance.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the importance of those positive identity-affirming stories.
Yeah, those are the antidote.
They provide that essential grounding force in the face of all these potentially harmful influences.
So it's not about banning technology altogether.
No, it's about being intentional.
Yeah, mindful about the narratives and influences that we surround our children with.
Both online and offline.
Right, and equipping them with the critical thinking skills they need.
To navigate the digital world safely and effectively.
And to discern between what's beneficial and what's not.
Exactly. And all of this connects beautifully with another perspective that we wanted to discuss.
Yeah, you shared that interesting YouTube video.
Right, the one that simply asks why stories are important.
I liked that one. It really highlighted the power of storytelling.
In a more general sense, beyond any specific religious or cultural context.
Yeah, it was about the universal appeal of stories.
What I found fascinating about it is how it emphasizes the effectiveness of stories as a tool for learning and connection.
For sure.
It highlights how stories can reach people of all ages and backgrounds.
Right.
Regardless of their education level or their personal experiences.
It's a common thread that binds us all together.
I think so. And they mention this really compelling claim by Jerome Bruner.
Who's he?
He is a cognitive psychologist.
Okay.
And he said that a fact wrapped up in a story is 22 times more memorable.
Whoa, that's a huge difference.
Than that same fact presented in isolation.
That's amazing.
It really underscores the power of narrative.
It's like our brains are wired to remember stories.
I think they are. And the video also talked about how stories cater to different learning styles.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
For example, the emotions and feelings in a story really resonate with kinesthetic learners.
Right, those who learn by doing.
Exactly. Then you've got the vivid imagery that often appeals to visual learners.
Yeah.
And then the specific vocabulary and the rhythm of the language that can engage auditory learners.
So there's something for everyone.
Absolutely. Regardless of how a child learns best, a well-crafted story has the potential to connect with them on multiple levels.
And make learning more effective and engaging.
Precisely. And when you bring this back to our discussion about Shia Islamic stories, it really reinforces the idea that these well-crafted narratives, especially those rich in cultural and moral content, can be incredibly powerful educational tools.
For all sorts of learners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back and see what we've learned.
Okay, so it's clear that children's stories, especially those rooted in a child's religious and cultural heritage, are absolutely essential.
They're not just entertainment.
No, they're much more than that.
They're fundamental for building a strong sense of identity.
Right.
For developing those crucial language and cognitive skills. For fostering emotional intelligence and empathy. And for laying that groundwork for moral and spiritual growth.
It's like they're providing a blueprint for life.
I think so. And it's really important for educators and parents to recognize and utilize the power of these narratives.
We can't just dismiss them as something trivial.
No, they have a huge impact on a child's holistic development.
And we also have to be mindful of the risks of neglecting these stories, of letting kids be passively exposed to those unchecked influences online.
Because that can really damage their values and their sense of self.
So it's a two-pronged approach.
Yeah. Providing the good and protecting from the bad.
And this leads us to a really critical question.
What's that?
Considering how powerful stories are,
right?
How can we be more intentional about the ones we expose our children to?
How can we curate those narratives to ensure positive development?
Protect them from harmful influences.
And nurture their growth on a strong foundation of values and understanding.
That's a question for all of us to ponder.
It is. And you know what I find myself doing?
What's that?
Thinking back on the stories that I encountered as a child.
Yeah.
And the impact they had on me.
Me too. It's amazing how those early stories can stay with you.
They really do. They shape who we become.
And I think that's a great place for us to leave it today.
I agree. Food for thought for everyone listening.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
Until then.